Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, the fourth film in this franchise, but the second film in a new supposed trilogy that we're receiving. This film is directed by Nia DaCosta. It is written by Alex Garland, who is one of the creators of this franchise, going all the way back to 28 Days Later. And Danny Boyle, he produced this film, but didn't direct it, of course. But this go around, as Spike is inducted into Jimmy Crystal's gang on the mainland, Dr. Carson makes a discovery that could have changed the world. This film, I was anticipating, not highly anticipating, but anticipating. I liked this franchise. I enjoyed the first two films. I loved 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy. I was all right with 28 Weeks Later. Didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I liked it for what it was. I think they were trying to do too much in that film. And that was it for that franchise for a while until we got 28 Years Later, just last year, from the originators, from Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. I didn't hate the movie. I think I put too much expectations on that film, and it didn't deliver like I wanted it to. And on rewatch, I kind of enjoyed it a little more than the first time I watched it, but it still didn't really set the world on fire for me. But I was curious, I'm all in on this franchise. So the Bone Temple is something that I was anticipating a little bit to see where we're heading in this world. Ray Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams, they all returned from 28 Years Later to reprise their roles this go around. And I must say, I enjoyed this more than 28 Years Later. I really did. I was all in on this movie from the get-go. I think it was paced fairly well. I think the direction by Nia DaCosta was really, really good. This is her best film. I can say that. I can poke my chest out with that. This was her best film. I wasn't a fan of her Candyman film. I know a lot of people like that movie. I did not like it. It just didn't grab me. Of course, the Marvels crashed and burned, so Nia DaCosta didn't really get there for me as a filmmaker. So I was a little skeptical with this, as far as her direction. But I think she did an excellent job here. This is not a Nia DaCosta film. This isn't her trying to copy Danny Boyle style. This is a 28 years film, or 28 week, or 28 a 28 film. She really did a good job of keeping the same tone that is a through line throughout these films, and I really appreciate that. The standouts in this film, of course, the direction, the acting. Ray Fiennes is doing Ray Fiennes, man. This is Ray Fiennes. Like, I don't know, man. It's hard for me to say. While I was watching the movie, I was sitting there like, man, this is the best Ray Fiennes I've seen in a long time. Probably best overall. And that's saying something, because Ray Fiennes is a national treasure, or a global treasure, should I say. I mean, Voldemort. What else needs to be said there? But he is amazing in this movie. Amazing. If the whole movie was just set around him, it would have been a perfect film, in my humble opinion. I think this is borderline Academy Award worthy type performance by Ray Fiennes. I was so captivated by his performance here. I mean, he held this movie together, man. This was his movie, and he did it, man. It was kind of weird to see him in this film. Well, the other film, 28 years later. It was weird to say, like, wow, Ray Fiennes in this movie. I mean, but I mean, he did it. I mean, he is. This almost feels like a type of film franchise that is beneath him, but somehow with his presence, it just elevates the film even more. Jack O'Connell, who, I mean, if there is an actor today that I would say is just, I don't want to typecast him as villains, but I mean, the dude is money as a villain. We just saw him last year in Sinners, probably one of the best villains from last year. He did it again here. You know, we only got a sample size in the previous film. This film, we get a lot more story and a lot more of him just chewing up the scenery here. I think he did a phenomenal job as well. The other Jimmies that runs with him did a pretty good job. The Spike character, played by Alfie Williams, who we were introduced in the previous film, I think he takes a back seat here. And that was one knock I have about the film, is the fact that we do get his journey, but it just derailed his journey so much, you know, because he was on a mission. He was on a mission. It just disappeared in this movie. And now that's no fault to the actor here. It's just the way that the film shaped out, that we focused on two different stories other than his journey that we were introduced in the first film. But I would have liked to seen more of him, at least more of him trying to get away from this band of psychos that he got hooked up with. But aside from that, he did a good job. The biggest standout to me, though, is the actor who plays Samson, the infected, the alpha infected. I think his name is Chi Lewis-Parry. I think, bro, where did he come from? I haven't seen him in nothing else. Plus, he's a big dude, and I'm talking about muscles wise. If you see the movie, yeah, he's big there too. But I'm talking muscle size. The dude is huge, man. I'm like, man, why isn't he in more stuff? With all of these superhero films and stuff coming out, man, he could be a Bane or a Juggernaut or something like that. You don't have to use much visual effects because he is huge. But aside from that, there's actually character there. There's character development there with an infected, and that was so intriguing to me. I was so into that story, and I mean, this movie does a good job. You have two parallel stories that's going on in this movie. You have the Jimmies, who are the villains, and then you have Ray Fiennes' character in Samson, their story, and it is running concurrent throughout the film until we link up at the end. But I was more interested in Ray Fiennes and Samson. I was more into that story than I was with the Jimmies. One, like I said, for the character development of Samson, but for the chemistry and the relationship building between those two characters throughout the film, that was organic and it felt pure and natural. And I was so surprised that a movie like this would give me that. It's weird, but I enjoyed it. Of course, I have some thoughts. I do have negatives about this film. There wasn't much infected there, and I mean, as far as going crazy and ripping people's heads off and stuff like that, we didn't get that in this movie. Only maybe one or two scenes, and it was quick. Now, look, I'm not a sadist or nothing, you know, but you go to see a movie like this that's quote unquote zombies or infected or whatever. you want to see those things go wild, run wild, and kill people. But you don't get that. You really don't get that in here. This was more of a character study than anything else. And then there's the ending. I did not. It's not that I didn't like the ending. The ending was fine, but it just felt like a mess at the end. It felt like we went completely off the rails in that final, about 15, 20 minutes of this movie. Because we was on such a really good path of storytelling. And then I guess they felt like, okay, we got to give them something at the end, something exciting at the end. And it wasn't really exciting. Now, it was fun. It was fun to watch. But it didn't fit the movie. It was just, I don't know, man. It was Ralph Fiennes and the Jimmies when they meet. It was unnecessary. If they had never met in the movie, if they have never come to a climax with those two meeting up, linking up, that's fine. The movie still would have been fine. I think it would have been much better. They didn't have to meet. Now, I understand with the Spike character and his connection to Dr. Carson, and I get all that, but it's just all that extra stuff that went with it. It was just too much. It was too much. Just threw me out of the film for a couple of minutes there. And then if you haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a nice little ending scene there that sets up a third film here. It links up, connects all the other films, going all the way back to the first one. And so if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. But if you did see it, I think that was a nice touch. I was wondering if that was going to happen, if that particular element was going to show up in these movies. And it did. And so kudos. Kudos for that. But overall, I enjoyed 85% of this movie. I really did. It was the best 28 movie since the first movie. I will put it the second best film in this franchise, and that's great. That is great. I wasn't expecting. I really thought this was going to be a dumpster fire, hands down. It wasn't even. You couldn't convince me otherwise. For the simple fact, number one, it came out in January. When you drop a film in January, it's that's studios just saying, just we made it. It didn't come out the way we wanted to. We're just gonna dump it in January, hope it makes a little money. But this was a really good January release. Now, by the time, God willing, if we live long enough to get to May, June, July, will we look back and remember 28 years later, The Bone Temple? Probably not. It's forgettable in that sense until it hits streaming or something like that, and then you can, revisit it again. But other than that, it's nothing that I would probably seek out again. But if it's on, if it happens to be on, if I'm doom scrolling through Netflix or something and I see it pop up, and I got it itching for a horror movie, I might click it on. But other than that, it's decent. It's a decent movie. And for this franchise, it's one of the better films. I give 28 years later, The Bone Temple a letter grade of a solid C+. I think it's one of the best films in this franchise and the best film from Nia DaCosta. Is it enough to get me excited for a third film? Not really, but it is enough to it is enough to keep me interested to see how the third film kind of, till I get to see a trailer for the next film. If we never get another film, I'm fine. If we do get another film, okay, I'm fine. That's basically where I'm at. I'm not jonesing for a third film in this particular trilogy, but Uh, if it do come around, I'm there for it. But I would like to know, what do you think, or how did you feel about 28 years later, the Bone Temple? Did you enjoy it? Do you think it's one of the worst, or do you think it's one of the best? Let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of 28 years later, the Bone Temple. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.